Hello, I'm Lucy A. McLaren, and today I'm doing a reading from The Madman's Hope, the Commune's Curse Book 2, which is releasing on the 14th of October. So this is a chapter from the perspective of Evelyn, and spoiler warning here, if you haven't read Awakening, which is book 1, there are some mild spoilers here, so just so you know. Evelyn stood looking over the ship's rail, a pressure lifting from her shoulders. She was leaving behind what remained of Little Haven and memories of all that had happened there, and she hadn't realised what a heavy hold that had over her until she was watching the shores of Septima retreat on the horizon. Arthur, the one who had taken everything from her, who had forced her to flee from Little Haven, who had shown her that she was truly worth nothing. Was he alive or dead at the hands of the Commune? Was he one of those working at Lord Torrent's estate? Or was he taken to some unknown location to work at the Grand Magister's command? She didn't know, may never know, but one thing was certain. She was leaving behind the fear of somehow meeting him again. Of course, she was also leaving Rafe, Rose, Dog and Hector, stuck as she was aboard a ship with the man who had hunted them for the Commune, and who would likely despise her if he knew of the powers she'd felt rise up within her in Lord Torrent's home. It was hard to accept him now as someone other than Commander Suleiman. She could only hope that she could learn to trust him, and that he hasn't led me into some form of trap. She sighed, regret gnawing at her heart. She glanced about to ensure she was alone, before retrieving her 2 auburn braids from where they were tucked into her tunic. She had held on to them rather than discarding them when she cut them off, some part of her strangely afraid to let them go. Aboard this ship, something had changed. She was a different person now. She had to be, else she might go mad thinking about all that had happened and the situation she now found herself in. Yet part of her couldn't help but wonder, had her powers truly returned to her in Lord Torrent's basement? Despite her concerns, part of her longed to tell Jonah, to confide in him as she might have Rafe not so long ago. But their journey had just begun, and she was reluctant to let her guard down. He would need to prove himself trustworthy, a feat she was not entirely sure he was capable of. As the breeze lifted, she allowed the hair to unravel, watching as the braids separated and released them into the great sea. She ran her hand over the short hair that remained, trying to be optimistic about Jonah's plan. I have to believe it will work. Despite the man he'd been, Jonah saved her. She couldn't ignore that. He went against his orders. He was giving her a chance to rescue Rafe and Rose. Could that be enough to forget all he'd been before, all he'd done? It had to be if she wanted to see Rafe and Rose again. She stared back towards Septima. I'll come back for you, I promise. Evelyn turned her back on the ocean and cast her eyes about the ship, watching as the crew went about their evening work. A cheery-faced cabin boy was moving around the deck with a lamp. Aside from his bobbing light, the only way to see anything on the ship would soon be the moon, which hovered above them like a great glowing orb. As she glanced up at the sky, the cabin boy passed her. Good evening, he said. She gave a terse nod, suspicious of his attempt at friendliness. She turned towards the stern of Septima's Blessing, where Jonah stood, black cloak whipping about as it caught the passing wind, merging with the darkness around him. Without the red cloak that marked him as a Commune soldier, he seemed smaller, less sure of himself. When Evelyn approached, he didn't acknowledge her. His eyes remained fixed ahead, jaw clenched. He'd been more subdued than usual since she'd woken from his fitful dream that morning, his brusqueness all the more evident. Though it was clear that a deep pain simmered just beneath the surface of his dark eyes, she wouldn't ask him to share his pain. She had secrets of her own, and understood how closely such things must be guarded. The only person who'd come close to knowing the truth was Rafe, and look how you ruined that friendship. Evelyn bit her lip, pushing the thought away. Now was not a time for thinking of past mistakes. She needed to be able to hold on to the tiny bubble of optimism within her. As she stood beside the stoic McLaren, however, it began to drift from her grasp. She was so unused to the feeling that she had no idea how to keep it close without breaking it altogether. She remained still, watching Jonah from the corner of her eye. Silence stretched between them as she struggled to find the words to start a conversation. Her mind flitted back and forth between wanting to reach out to him and wondering why she should be the one to make the effort to build a bridge. Finally, Evelyn could stand her cycling inner dialogue no longer. She jutted out her chin and said, "How long has it been since you were last home?" It was the first thing she could think to ask that felt innocent enough to warrant a response without causing irritation. Jonah remained still, face an emotionless mask. When he didn't reply, she assumed she'd said something wrong. The stiff way he held himself suddenly filled her with unease. What if she had misunderstood the reason for his helping her? Have I fallen for some trap? Trusted someone I shouldn't have again? There might be things at play that she could barely even fathom. The game was ongoing, her place on the board, as yet, undetermined. And that is an extract from The Madman's Hope, The Commune's Curse Book 2, which is available on the 14th of October. Pre-orders are now live and you can get it in paperback, ebook, and it will be on Kindle Unlimited. So please do check that out. Thank you very much.